The Galactic Empire, a vast and nearly unstoppable force in the galaxy, had always dismissed humanity as weak and insignificant. To them, Earth was just another primitive planet, filled with a species that could barely keep up with the advancements of galactic civilization. The Empire's officers, with their advanced technology and billions of loyal soldiers, looked down on humans as nothing more than ants scurrying around in the dirt. They felt no threat from Earth, and their arrogance showed in every diplomatic meeting and communication. One of the Empire's most senior officers, Grand Admiral Kor, had made it clear to all the galaxy that humanity was nothing but a cowardly race, always too scared to fight back against the might of the Empire. The humans are weak, their civilization is a joke, he often declared in public. They lack the courage, the resources, and the intelligence to ever rise up against us. We control their destiny now. These words weren't just empty boasts, they were a reflection of how the Empire had dealt with Earth. The Empire had slowly infiltrated Earth's governments, manipulated its resources, and used its spies to control humanity from the shadows. Earth, once a thriving planet with a proud history, was now under the control of an alien regime that had made sure no rebellion could rise. Humans, however, weren't entirely blind to the Empire's manipulation. They fought back in small, often desperate ways, underground resistance movements, secret networks of rebels, but each time, the Empire crushed them with its superior technology. The rebellion was like a candle fighting against a storm, flickering weakly but never truly going out. The people on Earth knew something had to change, but they had no idea how. Their survival seemed impossible against such a powerful enemy. Then, one fateful night, everything changed. It began as a small anomaly on the Empire's radar systems, something insignificant at first, just a tiny blip that appeared in Earth's atmosphere. It was quickly dismissed by Imperial commanders as a glitch or a rogue satellite. But the anomaly wasn't a glitch at all. It was something far more dangerous, something the Empire was not prepared for. Suddenly, Earth's skies lit up with a series of cloaked spacecraft, their presence undetected by the Empire's radar systems. They were sleek, black ships, moving silently through the atmosphere with a grace and speed that the Empire had never seen before. The spacecraft didn't match any known designs from the Empire, or from any species in the galaxy. These ships were unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered. The commanders on Earth's defenses were the first to react, seeing the sudden appearance of these ships in the night sky. Their panic was immediate. Earth's anti-aircraft systems were too outdated to counter an attack from such advanced ships. As the ships began to emerge from their cloaking field, revealing their true form, they unleashed hell. In seconds, they sent a dozen of the Empire's most advanced fighter jets plummeting to the ground in flames. The Empire's immediate reaction was disbelief. Their most trusted and advanced technology was being destroyed with ease, and they had no idea where this new enemy had come from. The high-tech fighter jets that had been considered invincible were nothing more than scrap metal in the face of this unknown force. The air was thick with explosions as the fighter jets were shredded mid-flight. The military leaders on Earth, who had been under the Empire's control for so long, could hardly believe what they were seeing. This was not an attack they had been prepared for. The very first wave of these strange ships was enough to cripple Earth's defenses. A dozen more ships appeared in the sky, swooping down with terrifying precision, taking out the Empire's airbases one by one. There was no time for the Empire to react. They could only watch as their fighters were torn apart, their communication systems scrambled, and their ground forces decimated. But what was most shocking to the Empire was not just the destruction, but the identity of the attackers. As the ships finally decloaked and hovered above Earth's surface, the galaxy's greatest military power saw something they never expected: humans. But these weren't ordinary humans. These were a new breed of soldier, elite, highly trained, and equipped with technology far beyond anything the Empire had ever seen. The soldiers in the ships wore sleek, dark armor that seemed to blend with the surroundings, moving in a way that suggested they were invisible to any detection systems. They were the American Boogeymen, a secret military group formed from the best and brightest soldiers Earth had to offer. They had been operating in the shadows, hidden from the Empire's watchful eye. Their true purpose was never revealed to the rest of humanity. They were Earth's last, desperate defense, and no one had known they existed until now. The Boogeymen didn't waste time. They launched a series of devastating attacks against key Imperial installations on Earth, first a communications hub, then a supply depot, and finally, they struck at the heart of the Empire's most powerful weapons factories. Every mission was flawless. Every move was planned with military precision. And every attack left the Empire's forces scrambling to recover. For the Empire, this was more than just an attack, it was a direct challenge to their supremacy. The Boogeymen were humans, yes, but they had technology that made them a threat to even the most advanced alien forces in the galaxy. As the Boogeymen continued to strike, the Empire's high command scrambled to understand just who they were up against. No one had ever heard of a group like this. The Boogeymen seemed to know exactly how to outmaneuver every strategy the Empire had used in the past, with tactics that were as ruthless as they were effective. The most shocking part of this entire scenario was that the Boogeymen weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for Earth's freedom, and for the freedom of every human being in the galaxy. The Empire's forces, once so sure of their control, were now faced with a relentless enemy they didn't understand. But the question remained, how had the Boogeymen gained such advanced technology? How were they able to strike so swiftly and precisely, crippling the Empire's forces before they even had a chance to respond? The Boogeymen's ships, their weapons, and their armor were unlike anything the Empire had ever seen. In fact, the technology seemed almost impossible to replicate, making the Boogeymen seem more like ghosts than real soldiers. The suspense was palpable. With every strike, the Boogeymen proved their strength. But with every victory, the Empire's determination to crush them grew. Who were these mysterious humans? And where did they get their power? As the battle raged on, one thing became clear, the Empire had seriously underestimated humanity. The cowards they had written off as insignificant were now their worst nightmare. And the Boogeymen were just getting started. The fate of Earth, and the entire galaxy, was about to change forever. Colonel Jack Reaver, leader of the American Boogeymen, stood at the command center, his face illuminated by the flickering light of holographic maps and mission reports. His mind was a fortress, calculating and precise, as he devised each step of the plan to liberate Earth from the Galactic Empire's grip. Unlike the Empire's leadership, Reaver understood that brute force alone wouldn't win this war, it was the human spirit, creativity, and adaptability that would lead them to victory. His objective was clear, to free Earth from the Empire's clutches by any means necessary. Reaver's Boogeymen were not your average soldiers. They were the best of Earth's elite forces, specially trained to fight in the shadows. They had been preparing for this moment in secret for years, building technology and strategies that no one, least of all the Empire, could have anticipated. These weren't the same humans that the Empire had once mocked. The Boogeymen were stealthy, ruthless, and relentless. The first phase of the operation involved covert strikes across Earth's major cities. The Empire had thought they had Earth under total control, but they were wrong. The Boogeymen slipped through the cracks, invisible to the Empire's vast surveillance systems. Their ships, cloaked in the skies, hovered silently above the cities. From there, the soldiers descended, using advanced cloaking devices and high-tech weapons to silently eliminate Imperial patrols. These soldiers didn't just fight, they became ghosts, slipping through the shadows without a trace. In the dead of night, streets that were once filled with Imperial forces became the hunting grounds for these unseen warriors. The Boogeymen had perfected close-quarters combat, using their advanced tech to make every strike precise and deadly. They moved with a fluid grace, silent as the night itself. The Empire's soldiers, heavily armored and arrogant, never saw them coming. A single Boogeyman soldier could dismantle an entire patrol before the Empire's soldiers even realized what was happening. The power of their advanced technology was undeniable. The cloaking devices they used rendered them invisible to the Empire's most sophisticated sensors, giving them the upper hand in every engagement. Boogeymen soldiers could infiltrate enemy lines, sabotage key installations, and vanish without a trace. Even the Empire's best-trained soldiers, armed with the most advanced weaponry, were helpless against the invisible menace. But the Boogeymen weren't just relying on technology. They were using their environment to their advantage. Earth's cities, once symbols of Empire domination, became traps for their enemies. The streets, the alleyways, the rooftops, all of them turned into battlegrounds where the Boogeymen could outwit and outmaneuver the Empire's forces. They used the urban landscape to create confusion, setting up ambushes and traps that left the Empire's soldiers disoriented and vulnerable. Each battle was a symphony of destruction, orchestrated by the Boogeymen's brilliance. Despite their technology and strategy, the Boogeymen were human, and with that came sacrifices. The emotional core of the Boogeymen's fight was the sense of brotherhood they shared. They were not just soldiers, they were a family, fighting for the survival of their world. This bond became especially clear during one of their most harrowing missions. In the heart of a ruined city, Bonner, one of the Boogeymen's finest soldiers, was leading a small team through a dangerous sector. The Empire had set up a blockade around the city, and their forces were closing in. Bonner's team was tasked with disabling the blockade's communication systems to buy time for the other Boogeymen units to infiltrate the area. The mission was risky, but Bonner's resolve was unwavering. As they crept through the shadows, the air thick with tension, they encountered an Imperial patrol. The odds were stacked against them. Bonner's team was outnumbered, and their position was compromised. The Empire's soldiers had heard the faintest noise, and within moments, they were closing in. Bonner didn't hesitate. He knew that the success of the mission depended on his team's survival. With a silent signal, he instructed his soldiers to move quickly and quietly into position. The first wave of Empire soldiers was almost upon them. In one fluid motion, Bonner launched his attack, taking out the first soldier with a swift strike. His team followed suit, engaging the Empire forces with deadly precision. It was close-quarters combat at its finest, fists, knives, and advanced tech working in perfect synchronization. The clash of metal and the sound of bodies hitting the ground filled the air. The Boogeymen moved like a single entity, their tactics flawless. But despite their skill, the situation was deteriorating quickly. Bonner's team fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered. As the battle raged on, Bonner found himself face to face with an Imperial officer, a towering figure in heavy armor. The officer's blaster raised, ready to fire. Bonner's instincts kicked in, and in a split second, he took the officer down, but not without cost. A blast from a nearby Imperial weapon struck him in the side. The pain was immense, but Bonner pushed through, his focus on his team. "Get to the comms. I'll hold them off," Bonner shouted, his voice steadied despite the blood that stained his armor. His team hesitated, but he gave them a look, a silent command that they couldn't ignore. They rushed forward, leaving him behind. Bonner knew his sacrifice would give them the time they needed to complete the mission. As the last of his team vanished into the shadows, Bonner turned to face the advancing Empire soldiers. His hand gripped his weapon tightly, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew he wouldn't make it out alive, but his death would not be in vain. The fight that followed was brutal, and Bonner held his ground for as long as he could. His final moments were a blur of motion, a blur of enemies falling before him. But in the end, the overwhelming force of the Empire's soldiers took its toll. Bonner fell to the ground, his last breath a silent defiance to the Empire's rule. The loss of Bonner hit the Boogeymen hard. He had been a brother, a friend, someone they had trusted with their lives. His death was a reminder of the harsh reality of the war they were fighting. But it also fueled their resolve. Bonner had given everything for their mission, and they would honor his sacrifice by completing what he had started. The Boogeymen's power wasn't just in their technology or their tactics, it was in their unity, their bond, and their unwavering belief in the cause. They fought for Earth, but they also fought for each other. And with every loss, their determination grew stronger. They would not let the Empire crush them. They would fight, no matter the cost, until Earth was free. As the night sky darkened, the Boogeymen regrouped, preparing for the next phase of their operation. The war was far from over, but with each strike, the Empire's grip on Earth was loosening. And the Boogeymen were just getting started. The Galactic Empire, stunned by the sudden rise of the American Boogeymen, knew they couldn't allow such a rebellion to persist. The humans, whom they had once deemed weak and insignificant, were proving to be anything but that. The Empire's pride, which had been built on the fear of its vast technological superiority, was now being shattered. And so, they retaliated. The Empire's response was swift and brutal. Massive warships, each one the size of a city, descended upon Earth. These colossal ships were equipped with devastating weapons capable of obliterating entire regions in seconds. The Empire's invasion force was enormous, with countless ground troops, armored vehicles, and automated drones pouring into Earth's cities, overwhelming any resistance they encountered. The sheer scale of the Empire's forces seemed insurmountable. Earth's defenses, once seen as sufficient against the Empire's earlier incursions, were now hopelessly outclassed. But humanity wasn't going to surrender. The Boogeymen, fueled by the death of their comrade Bonner and the fire of defiance, were determined to push back. They had fought in the shadows, but now, with the Empire's forces threatening to crush Earth's last hope, it was time to go to war, on every front. The Boogeymen knew they couldn't defeat the Empire through sheer force alone. Their strength lay in their ingenuity, in the ways they could use their environment and their advanced technology against the Empire's massive war machine. Above Earth, the sky had become a battlefield. The Boogeymen's fleet, still concealed by cloaking technology, engaged the Empire's forces in a deadly game of cat and mouse. The first battle in space was unlike anything Earth had ever seen before. The Empire's warships, towering behemoths, unleashed massive barrages of missiles and energy blasts, creating a storm of destruction above the planet. Earth's cities were watching the skies, anxiously hoping their resistance would hold. The Boogeymen's ships, though smaller, were faster and more agile. They darted through the chaos, cloaking themselves at the last second to avoid detection. Their pilots, trained for stealth and precision, used guerrilla tactics to disable the Empire's massive warships, targeting weak points in their defense systems. But the Empire wasn't going down without a fight. Massive energy blasts collided with the Boogeymen's ships, lighting up the space around Earth like fireworks. The Boogeymen took heavy losses, but they kept fighting, driven by the knowledge that humanity's future was on the line. On the ground, the Empire's forces were equally overwhelming. Tanks rolled through cities, their massive guns leveling buildings in seconds. Drones filled the air, scanning for any signs of resistance. The Empire's ground forces were relentless, pushing forward with no regard for the destruction they left in their wake. But the Boogeymen, still operating under the cover of darkness, were far from done. They fought with everything they had, using their advanced cloaking devices, drones, and high-tech weaponry to strike the Empire's forces where they least expected it. It wasn't just the Boogeymen anymore. The entire human resistance had rallied together. Ordinary civilians, once hidden away in fear, now joined the fight. They were armed with whatever they could get their hands on. Makeshift weapons, old military rifles, and even experimental tech that the Boogeymen had introduced to Earth. The human spirit, often seen as fragile by the Empire, was now a force to be reckoned with. People fought not just for survival, but for their freedom. It was the birth of humanity's true resistance. The battlefield became a theater of chaos. As the Boogeymen continued to wage their guerrilla war, a series of devastating orbital bombardments from the Empire's ships rained down on Earth's cities. The explosions were massive, turning once thriving metropolises into ruins. Skyscrapers crumbled, streets were obliterated, and the once bustling world was now a war-torn wasteland. Amidst the destruction, the Boogeymen pressed on. Colonel Jack Reaver, as calm and strategic as ever, coordinated their movements from a hidden base beneath the Earth's surface. Despite the loss of soldiers and the destruction surrounding them, Reaver was unyielding. He knew that humanity's strength wasn't in numbers, but in their resolve. His tactics were sharp, and he understood that every battle was part of a much bigger picture. Back in the heart of the battle, the Boogeymen soldiers fought fiercely. Their advanced tech allowed them to disrupt the Empire's communication systems, sending their enemy into disarray. But the fight was taking a toll. With every passing day, the Boogeymen lost more of their own. And yet, their resistance grew stronger. Bonner's death had lit a fire in the hearts of the remaining soldiers. His sacrifice became a symbol for the rebellion, a rallying cry for every person who still believed Earth could be free. The Boogeymen weren't just fighting to survive, they were fighting to avenge their fallen comrades and to show the Empire that humanity wasn't weak. As the war raged on, the Empire began to realize something: the humans they had once thought of as insignificant were adapting quickly. Earth's resistance was evolving, learning from every encounter. The humans' bravery and resourcefulness were proving to be their most deadly weapons. The Empire's arrogance had blinded them to the true power of humanity. The more the Empire tried to crush the rebellion, the stronger humanity became. The Boogeymen's use of guerrilla tactics was becoming legendary. They struck where the Empire least expected them, in the dark corners of cities, in the rubble of destroyed buildings, and deep within enemy lines. The humans had learned how to turn the Empire's greatest strengths into weaknesses. They had learned how to make every fight count, using the landscape to their advantage. The once mighty Empire now found itself at war with an enemy that refused to break, an enemy that was growing in strength with each passing day. The theme of the underdog rising up against overwhelming odds was now clearer than ever. The Boogeymen were no longer just a secret resistance, they were the face of humanity's fight for freedom. With every battle, they gained more allies, more support from Earth's surviving population. The humans who had once been cowering under the Empire's boot now stood side by side with the Boogeymen, taking up arms and fighting for their future. And as the final space battle above Earth intensified, the Boogeymen's greatest weapon came to life. Using technology derived from Earth's own quantum mechanics and the Empire's own captured systems, they launched a surprise counterattack that sent shockwaves through the Empire's fleet. It wasn't just a fight, it was humanity's declaration of war. The Empire, so confident in their victory, now had to face the full might of a united Earth. The retaliation from the Empire had begun, but the resistance had found its strength. The underdogs, once dismissed as weak, were now pushing back with everything they had. And the Empire was beginning to realize that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. This fight was far from over, but the Boogeymen and humanity's resistance were ready for whatever the Empire threw at them next. The battle for Earth was just beginning, and the Empire's grip on the planet was starting to slip. The war between the Galactic Empire and humanity was at a tipping point. The Boogeymen had fought valiantly against overwhelming odds, using every bit of their advanced technology and guerrilla tactics to weaken the Empire's grasp on Earth. The humans, once dismissed as weak, had now become the greatest threat the Empire had ever faced. But just when it seemed like they had a fighting chance, the Empire revealed its most terrifying weapon, one that could easily tip the scales in their favor. The Empire's scientists had been working on this weapon in secret, and it was unlike anything the Boogeymen had ever seen before. A massive, mechanized AI, the culmination of all their technological prowess, was unleashed. This machine, a towering figure of metal and fire, had the ability to decimate entire cities in a matter of seconds. The AI wasn't just a mindless machine, it was a being of extraordinary intelligence, capable of calculating and adapting to any strategy the Boogeymen could devise. It could sense the slightest movement, detect the faintest signal, and it would not stop until Earth was reduced to rubble. When the Boogeymen first saw the AI weapon in action, they knew they were facing a battle unlike any other. This was no longer about mere survival. It wasn't just about defending their homes or their families. The fight had become about something much greater, the freedom of the entire galaxy. If the Empire's AI weapon succeeded in wiping out humanity, it would be a signal to every other race and civilization in the galaxy. The Empire's rule was unchallenged, and anyone who stood against them would be obliterated. The Boogeymen's leadership, especially Colonel Jack Reaver, understood the stakes. The moment Bonner died in battle, a fire had been lit within him, a fire that refused to let the Empire win. Reaver's heart burned with a personal vendetta. The Empire had taken his friends, his comrades, and had tried to wipe out the last hope for humanity. Now, it was time for him to lead the final charge. But as he watched the AI weapon level an entire city block with a single blast, Reaver knew that the odds were stacked against them like never before. The Boogeymen regrouped, their morale shaken but their resolve stronger than ever. The AI weapon seemed invincible. The Empire's latest creation moved through the ruined streets of Earth cities, crushing everything in its path. Nothing could stand up to its sheer destructive power. Armed with the most advanced weapons the Empire had to offer, the AI seemed unstoppable. It was as if every move the Boogeymen made was anticipated before they even made it. The Boogeymen, however, were not easily deterred. They knew that if they stood a chance at defeating this machine, they would need to hit it where it was weakest. Reaver and his team of experts began studying the AI's patterns, hoping to find a flaw in its design. For hours, they analyzed the machine from every angle, looking for something, anything, that could help them turn the tide. They discovered that while the AI was powerful, it was still vulnerable to certain types of electromagnetic pulses, something that could disrupt its systems long enough for them to strike. But getting close enough to deliver such a strike was another matter entirely. The AI's sensors were capable of detecting even the smallest heat signature, and its weapons were devastatingly precise. The Boogeymen couldn't afford to make a single mistake. If they failed, the consequences would be disastrous. Reaver knew that the success of this mission rested on his shoulders. As the Boogeymen prepared for the final showdown, a deep sense of urgency and dread filled the air. They had come so far, fought so hard. To give up now would mean not just the end of Earth, but the end of all hope for the galaxy. This battle wasn't just for survival, it was for freedom itself. Reaver could feel the weight of this responsibility pressing down on him. If they lost, there would be no one left to fight the Empire. The galaxy would fall under its iron fist, and humanity's struggle would be in vain. The mission was set. Reaver and his most trusted team members would infiltrate the Empire's stronghold where the AI was being controlled. They would disable its communication network, cut off its ability to adapt, and then launch an all-out assault on the AI itself. It was a dangerous plan, and the chances of success were slim. But they had no choice. It was all or nothing. As Reaver and his team set out, the Boogeymen engaged in one final, desperate fight against the Empire's forces on the surface. The AI's forces had been hunting them relentlessly, and now, with Reaver's team on their way to deliver the killing blow, they needed to create a diversion, something to keep the Empire's attention long enough to buy them time. The final battle was intense. The skies above Earth were filled with the roar of fighter jets and explosions. The Boogeymen, with their advanced cloaking technology and stealth tactics, darted in and out of battle, engaging in hit-and-run attacks that confused the Empire's forces. But as the battle raged on, it became clear that the AI weapon was no ordinary machine. It was learning from every engagement, evolving its tactics and becoming even more dangerous with each passing minute. The Boogeymen's guerrilla tactics weren't enough to stop it. It was then that Reaver's team infiltrated the Empire's stronghold, moving in quietly through the shadows. They used everything at their disposal, advanced cloaking, electromagnetic pulses, and even psychological warfare, to make their way deeper into the heart of the Empire's defenses. Each step brought them closer to their goal, but the tension in the air was unbearable. Every sound, every movement, felt like it could be their last. As they approached the AI's central control hub, they encountered fierce resistance. The Empire's soldiers, realizing what was happening, threw everything they had at the Boogeymen. But Reaver and his team pushed forward, determined to complete the mission. They fought through wave after wave of enemies, knowing that the fate of humanity was riding on their success. Finally, they reached the heart of the Empire's control center. The AI, aware of their presence, activated its defenses, and a final, brutal showdown began. The battle was unlike any other, with Reaver and his team using every ounce of their strength, skill, and advanced technology to fight the AI's relentless forces. The Boogeymen fought like men possessed, their bodies battered, but their spirits unbroken. In the end, it came down to Reaver. With everything on the line, he launched a final, desperate strike against the AI, targeting its core systems with a specially designed EMP device. As the EMP pulse hit, the AI's systems faltered, its massive form slowing down as it tried to adapt. The machine screeched, its advanced intellect scrambling to find a solution, but it was too late. Reaver's strike had worked. The AI collapsed, its mechanical body grinding to a halt. The Empire's most powerful weapon had been destroyed. Earth was safe. But the victory came at a cost. Reaver and his team had paid the price with their lives. They had given everything to ensure humanity's survival, and in that final moment, their sacrifice was the spark that would light the way for a new era of resistance. The Boogeymen had won, and humanity's freedom had been secured. The Empire's grip on Earth had been shattered, and the galaxy would never be the same. But the war was far from over. With the Empire's greatest weapon now destroyed, the Boogeymen and humanity had proven that even the greatest power in the universe could be defeated, and that no force, no matter how advanced, could ever extinguish the human spirit. The night was thick with tension as Jack Reaver and his remaining team prepared for the most dangerous mission they had ever faced. Their goal was simple but almost suicidal: infiltrate the heart of the Empire's most advanced weapon, the AI, and destroy it before it could launch a final, devastating strike that would wipe out all of humanity. The stakes couldn't be higher. This wasn't just about survival. It was about ensuring that humanity had a future free from the Empire's iron grip. The plan was as risky as they came. Reaver and his team would have to enter the Empire's heavily fortified facility where the AI weapon was being controlled. Once inside, they needed to plant a quantum disruptor, a device capable of short-circuiting the AI's core systems and shutting it down for good. Time was their enemy. Every second they spent inside the facility brought the AI closer to activating its final assault. They knew the consequences of failure all too well. If they didn't succeed, humanity would be finished. As they prepared to leave, Reaver took one last look at his team. His heart was heavy, not just with the weight of the mission, but with the knowledge that many of them might not return. Bonner's death had already shown them the harsh reality of war: sacrifice was inevitable, and no one could escape its grip. But still, they pressed forward. They had no other choice. The Boogeymen had fought tooth and nail to get this far, and they weren't about to stop now. The journey to the Empire's weapon facility was a blur of firefights, near misses, and constant evasion of the Empire's security. The Boogeymen moved like shadows, utilizing their cloaking technology and superior stealth tactics to stay one step ahead of the enemy. The facility was heavily guarded, and every inch they gained came at a cost. The Empire's soldiers were relentless, and the advanced sensors protecting the weapon detected even the faintest movement. Reaver led the charge, his mind sharp, every decision calculated. He knew that any mistake could cost them everything. The rest of the team followed, each of them knowing what they were risking. But it wasn't just the mission that kept them going, it was the memory of those they had lost. Bonner's death had ignited something inside them, a fire that refused to be extinguished. They weren't just fighting for survival now, they were fighting for vengeance, for the future of their people. As they approached the weapon's core, the tension reached its breaking point. The team fought through wave after wave of Empire soldiers, the gunfire echoing off the walls of the facility. It was a deadly game of cat and mouse, each team member using their unique skills to outwit and outmaneuver the Empire's forces. The sound of blaster fire and explosions filled the air as they pushed forward. But the closer they got to the AI's central control room, the more intense the battle became. The Empire knew they were coming, and the reinforcements were endless. The Boogeymen used every piece of technology at their disposal, from cloaking devices to EMP grenades, but even with their superior tactics, they were beginning to feel the strain. The Boogeymen were skilled fighters, but the Empire's forces had numbers on their side. They couldn't afford to be cornered. In the midst of this chaos, Reaver's leadership became even more crucial. He remained calm, guiding his team through the firefight with precision and efficiency. Every time they came to a dead end or faced overwhelming odds, Reaver's voice would cut through the noise, giving them a sense of direction. He was their anchor, the one who kept them focused on the mission. And yet, even he could feel the weight of the sacrifice that was looming. The final push toward the AI's core was a blur of close-quarters combat. Reaver and his team fought hand-to-hand with Empire soldiers, using their advanced training and reflexes to overpower their enemies. Each room they cleared was a victory, but the clock was ticking. They knew that every minute spent in the facility brought them closer to the moment when the AI would unleash its final weapon. They could already hear the hum of its engines powering up, preparing for the final strike. It was then that disaster struck. As Reaver and his team reached the AI's control room, they were ambushed by a squad of Imperial soldiers. The room was a maze of consoles and machinery, and the Boogeymen were forced into a deadly firefight with no way out. Explosions rocked the room as the team fought tooth and nail to keep the enemy at bay. The stakes had never been higher. They were so close to finishing the mission, and yet it felt like everything was slipping through their fingers. In the chaos of the firefight, Reaver saw his chance. He dashed towards the central console, knowing that the quantum disruptor had to be activated immediately. With the Empire's soldiers closing in on him, he had no time to waste. As he reached for the device, a blast rang out. The impact sent him crashing to the ground, but he didn't stop. He had come too far to give up now. With a painful grunt, Reaver activated the disruptor. The device hummed to life, sending a powerful pulse of energy through the AI's core systems. The room shook as the disruptor did its work, the AI's systems scrambling to adapt. For a moment, it seemed as though the machine might recover. But then, with a deafening roar, the AI's massive form jerked and spasmed, its lights flickering as its systems overloaded. It was working. The AI was malfunctioning. But victory came at a price. The disruption had triggered a chain reaction in the facility's power systems, causing an explosion that would tear the whole structure apart. Reaver knew that they didn't have much time. His team was still engaged in battle, trying to hold off the remaining Empire forces, but there was no way they could escape in time. He had made the sacrifice, he had taken the chance, and now he would have to make sure the rest of his team survived. Reaver's voice rang out through the chaos, ordering his team to fall back. They had completed their mission. The AI was defeated. Earth was saved. But there was no time to celebrate. The facility was about to collapse, and they had to get out before it was too late. The Boogeymen fought their way through the facility, each of them knowing that there was no guarantee they would make it out alive. In the end, it was the ultimate sacrifice. Several key members of the Boogeymen, including Reaver, gave their lives to ensure the success of the mission. As the facility crumbled around them, they made one final stand to ensure that humanity would have a chance to live. The AI was dead, and Earth had been saved, but at a devastating cost. Jack Reaver, their leader, had given everything for the cause, and his sacrifice would be remembered as the turning point in humanity's fight against the Empire. With the AI destroyed and the Empire's most powerful weapon no longer a threat, the tides had turned. Humanity had faced its greatest fear, and in the face of impossible odds, it had triumphed. The Boogeymen had done what no one thought possible. They had shown the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. Now, the fight for freedom was only just beginning. The Empire had been dealt a crushing blow, but the Boogeymen's work was far from over. The final battle had been fought, but the war was still raging, and the Boogeymen would continue to fight, no matter the cost. The war had raged on for what felt like an eternity. The Empire, once the undisputed ruler of the galaxy, was now crumbling. It had all come down to this final confrontation. The loss of their most powerful weapon, the AI, had dealt a blow from which they could not recover. Their fleet, once vast and mighty, had been shattered by the relentless attack of the Boogeymen and Earth's remaining forces. The invincible Empire, the one that had believed humanity to be weak and unworthy of consideration, was on the brink of collapse. The time had come for the last act of defiance. Earth's forces, led by the courageous Boogeymen, would deliver the final blow, one that would echo throughout the galaxy. As the remnants of the Empire's forces began to retreat, it became clear that the end was near. Their once formidable strength had been broken, scattered to the winds. The Empire, realizing that their fate was sealed, had no choice but to pull back. But it was too late. The Boogeymen and humanity's military, fueled by the fire of vengeance and the desire for freedom, were prepared to finish the job. They would ensure that the Empire's retreat would be one they would never recover from. Humanity's forces were no longer the underdogs. The battles fought, the losses endured, and the countless victories had transformed them into something the Empire had never anticipated, a fierce and unrelenting force. The Boogeymen had proven that they could outsmart and outfight the Empire at every turn. They had shown that even the most technologically advanced alien forces could be beaten, that Earth was no longer a helpless planet cowering under the shadow of the Empire's might. The final push came as the Empire's remaining warships attempted to flee, their engines igniting in an attempt to escape the grasp of humanity's forces. But they couldn't outrun what they had underestimated. Earth's military, with its newly acquired technology and battle-hardened resolve, was ready. The Boogeymen led the charge, using humanity's gravity manipulation technology, an advancement that had been developed by the scientists they had saved during the conflict, to cripple the Empire's remaining ships. In the vast expanse of space above Earth, the final battle unfolded. The once proud warships of the Empire were caught in a web of gravitational forces, their movements sluggish as the human-made tech locked them in place. The Boogeymen, alongside humanity's forces, unleashed everything they had, sending missiles, energy blasts, and drones crashing into the weakened ships. Each strike was a reminder to the Empire of their fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity's capacity for innovation, determination, and sheer willpower. One by one, the Empire's ships began to fall, their once dominant forms now drifting helplessly in space, torn apart by the relentless assault. The soundless destruction was a visual spectacle, as enormous warships, once symbols of the Empire's power, were consumed by the void. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, as if acknowledging the triumph of the human spirit over the seemingly invincible Empire. Back on Earth, the survivors of the Boogeymen, along with the rest of humanity, watched in awe as their victory unfolded. It was hard to believe that the planet that had once been seen as weak and insignificant had become the place from which the Empire's reign would end. The Boogeymen, those silent warriors who had fought tirelessly and sacrificed everything, now stood tall. Their mission was complete. Earth was free. In the heart of the celebration, a sense of bittersweet joy hung in the air. The cost of this victory had been high. Many brave Boogeymen had fallen in the struggle, and their absence would forever be felt. But the survivors had done what no one thought possible. They had torn down the walls of tyranny and restored hope to a galaxy that had been oppressed for centuries. The world that had once been a mere pawn in the Empire's game was now a symbol of defiance, a beacon of resistance. The final moments of the Empire's collapse were a visual spectacle, as the remnants of their forces were brought to their knees. A transmission was sent from the Boogeymen's command center, a direct message to the shattered remnants of the Empire: "We have won. You have lost. The galaxy now belongs to those you once called cowards." The image of the once proud Empire pleading for mercy was an astonishing sight. For years, the Empire had looked down upon humanity, dismissing them as insignificant and unworthy. They had laughed at the idea that humans could stand up against their advanced technology, their military might, and their seemingly endless resources. Yet now, it was the Empire that found itself begging for mercy, humbled by the very people it had once considered weak. In the closing moments of the war, as the last remnants of the Empire's forces were dismantled, a new chapter began to unfold. The galaxy was no longer the Empire's to control. It belonged to humanity. The Boogeymen had not only liberated Earth but had also shown the galaxy what humans were capable of. Earth's military, once considered a joke by the rest of the galaxy, was now a force to be reckoned with. The underdogs had risen, and they had triumphed. As the dust settled and the galaxy began to rebuild, the Boogeymen and humanity's forces stood together, ready to face whatever challenges the future would bring. They had fought the greatest battle of their lives, and they had emerged victorious. The good versus evil theme, which had defined the conflict, had reached its peak. Humanity, once dismissed as weak and insignificant, had defeated the most powerful empire in the galaxy. The story of their rise would be told for generations, a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the courage to stand up against tyranny. But the war was not over. Though the Empire had been defeated, there were still factions and remnants of their power scattered throughout the galaxy. Humanity had proven that it was a force to be reckoned with, but the road ahead would not be easy. The Empire's defeat was a victory, but it was also the beginning of a new era, one where humanity would have to continue to fight to preserve the peace they had earned. The final scene, however, was one of triumph. Humanity stood victorious, the shattered remnants of the Empire now on their knees. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's strength, and it would never again underestimate the people of Earth. The Boogeymen's victory had been the turning point, the moment when humanity proved that they were not just survivors, they were conquerors. The Empire had fallen, and the future was now in the hands of those who had once been called cowards. As the Boogeymen and humanity's forces looked toward the horizon, they knew that the battle had been won, but the war was far from over. The galaxy would remember the day humanity stood up to the Empire, and the people of Earth would ensure that the legacy of their victory would last for generations to come. The Empire had fallen, but humanity's rise had only just begun.